Hi, and welcome. You're listening to the X22 Report. My name is Dave, and this is episode 1453 AN. Today's date is December 20th, 2017, and the title of the episode is Warning, We Might Have Been Tricked. Here's how. Let's get into the economic collapse financial news. Now, as we can see, the central banks are getting very worried because the BREXIT date is approaching. And we know from the past, the central bankers, they don't want anyone to leave their system. They want everyone in their system so they can control them. And it looks like the Brexit is going forward, even though the central bankers are going to try to do whatever they possibly can to stop it. We see the EU is out there. We see the IMF is out there now saying that the growth forecast for the British economy is not going to be as good as we actually thought. It's going to be a lot lower than we originally forecasted, because if they're going to leave the Eurozone, it's not going to work out for the UK. Now, of course, what they're doing is they're playing this up to make everyone believe that without the central banks, without being included, without going along with all their rules, there's going to be problems in the UK. And of course, they're doing this on purpose. They want this as a clear message to everyone. And they said during the referendum, if the referendum goes through, everything's going to crash. And it actually didn't. And whatever the central banks tell you, it is always the opposite. Whatever government tells you, it is always the opposite. We see right now the House has passed the Trump tax plan. It was recalled for technicalities, and it looks like the vote went through and it was passed once again. Now it moves on to the Senate. And once again, as we stated yesterday in the report, there are certain senators that are going to benefit from this. There was like a rider that was included in this, and again, it was shoved in at the last minute, and many senators are going to benefit from this. And once again, this means that the government individuals that are working in our government that's supposed to be working for the people, they're actually working for themselves. Now, we see existing home sales. The data from that came out. New home sales, pending home sales, and all of a sudden, everything is surging. They expected a 0.9% jump, and now all of a sudden, there was a surge of about 5.6%. This is the strongest pace of sales since December of 2006. Now, we need to understand something. Inventories, they're saying, are crashing, but sales are increasing. Forget about the pending home sales. Most of those were canceled along the way. The other thing that we need to understand is that home prices in these 20 cities, they're surging also, while incomes are going down and mortgage applications are dropping. We see they've dropped by 4.9% this week, something like 4% last week. Yes, they were up 4%, but as we can see, mortgage applications, they have not gone anywhere. It's almost like a flat line. And normally when you see the housing market increase, you see more and more people taking out mortgages. We're not really seeing this. And we've noticed when we broke it all down that a lot of these sales are coming from hedge funds, investment companies, foreign investors, from the free money from the Fed. And now we know the foreign investors are backing away. And what's even more interesting is that during the summer months, the real estate industry was hurting. Sales were down. This time of the year is not really that great for real estate. And we're seeing it surge. Something doesn't make sense. And remember, a lot of these numbers are coming from the government, and they have the ability to manipulate and to make us believe that these things are really happening. And all they have to do is pump in free money, tell hedge funds, investment companies, go ahead, purchase as much as you can, keep the houses off the market, and this is exactly what they do. Now, what's very interesting is that the stock market is continually moving up. It's hitting record levels. We've never seen it before like this, in the past, where it's been so high. Now, if you go back to 2007, 2008, we were hitting 14,000 points, and people said the same exact thing. If you go back to the dot-com era, people said the same thing. If you go all the way back to 1929, when it hit like 300 or 400 points, people just said the same exact thing. And then the market came down. But what's very interesting about the stock market, it is shrinking at the same time the market is continually moving up. Now, what I mean by that is that if we go back in time to 1975, the U.S. domestic companies that traded on the U.S. exchanges totaled around 4,819. 40 years later, the market has shrunk to less than 4,000 despite tripling in GDP. Now, if you take a shorter time span like 20 years, which included the dot-com craze, guess what? It's even worse. The numbers of publicly listed companies trading on the U.S. exchanges has been cut almost in half in the past 20 years, from about 7,300 to 3,700, because firms can't grow organically. That is, build more business from new and existing customers. They give up and pay high prices to acquire their competitors, thus drastically shrinking the number of U.S. public companies. This seriously contributes to the massive loss of U.S. middle-class jobs. As of early 2017, according to Ernst & Young, just 140 of these publicly traded companies represented more than half of the total market value of all stocks traded in the U.S. Another stark example of the dangerous trend of wealth concentration in the U.S. And what we're seeing is that we have less companies, I should say. The central bankers are coming in and they're buying as much as they possibly can to pump the markets up. And there are no earnings for these companies. They're not bringing in more revenue. They're not making more sales. So when we look at this, the whole thing, the entire thing, is based on one gigantic illusion. Just like the economy. And every time we dig deeper and deeper, we see that this whole thing is one gigantic illusion. And this is what the central bankers do. Now, what's very interesting, in the Washington Post, they had this opinion piece. And of course, whenever they come out with these opinion pieces, it's like a little feeler of what the people are going to think about this. They get it out there and they drop the breadcrumbs. They'll let everyone know that something is about to happen. In the Washington Post, they're saying that the Fed coin is going to be bigger than Bitcoin. Now, we talked about this before. Now, there are two different camps in cryptocurrency market where people are saying that this is a decentralized system, that it was developed to move away from the bankers, and this is a people's currency. The other camp is saying that this is a trick. It was created by the NSA, the government, and they're trying to trick us. Now, I can see both sides to this. I can see the decentralized portion of it, where you have Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies. And if it is possible to keep the government, to keep the central bank away from the cryptocurrency market, I can see how this can work. But as we know, the central bankers, those who are in power, they don't want this to happen. And they're talking about a Fed coin right now. What does that mean? It means that they're going to create one. Now, the Washington Post is saying that, it's not even created yet. So when I look at this, they've already created the Fed coin. It's all ready to go. What they need is the governments around the world to pass laws to say that you can only use the Fed coin. Now, I have an interview coming up with Jeff Nielsen, and we discussed this. And one of their ways that they can do this is they can create a bubble in Bitcoin. Now, I know we've been saying that Bitcoin's not a bubble, but listen to what I'm saying here. If the central bank buys more and more of the cryptocurrency Bitcoin, it's very easy for them to do this. All they have to do is create money out of thin air, and they can buy it up, just like they do with the stock market, just like they do with real estate and everything else. So they create currency out of thin air, they buy cryptocurrency, they build it up where the price goes up and up and up and up. They get people into Bitcoin. Now, is the whole country into Bitcoin? No. It's a very small portion. Then all of a sudden, they sell. Now, if they have about 70 or 60 or 80% of the market, it's going to decimate the market. They'll bring it down. They then can make the case of why Bitcoin and all other cryptocurrencies, they're too volatile, they're dangerous, and we need a Fed coin. And it just so happens they have one ready to go. All we need is for governments to pass laws to say, let the central banks handle the cryptocurrency market, where everyone has to use the Fed coin. I mean, they could do this very easily. They've done it before. They pump up the stock market, they dump it, they collect the wealth. They do it to the housing market. They do it to everything. They are the masters of creating bubbles where they build stuff up and then they pull the rug out from under it. And we can see right now, this is something that they might do. Now, the Federal Reserve is talking about this. The Biz is talking about this. And the IMF is talking this. And I thought it was very suspicious when the IMF came out and they started to talk about Bitcoin, and they said it was good because this does not fit into their model, having a decentralized currency type of system where they don't have control and they can't attach any type of interest where the governments have to borrow this currency. Now, I could see where they're saying that the cryptocurrency market is great as long as you go along with us. And we can see that this could be their trick. This could be a ploy to make everyone feel good, and this is what they do. You feel great in the stock market, you feel great in the housing market, and then all of a sudden, everything crashes. You feel great in the crypto market, Bitcoin, Litecoin, Dash, and then all of a sudden, boom, they start selling, they drop the market, and they can make their case very easily. And you want to hear more? If you want to hear more about this, listen to the interview with Jeff Nielsen and I. I'm going to be putting this up later tonight, which is Wednesday, December 20th, and you can listen to the entire interview. And we could see right now that this is a possibility, and we need to be very cautious in what we're doing. And this is why when people say, well, I'm going all in on cryptocurrency, I'm not doing anything else, this is why I say you have to be very careful. Yes, I do own cryptocurrencies. Yes, I have Bitcoin. Yes, I have Litecoin, Dash, and all others, but I don't have everything in there. I still buy gold and silver. I buy a little bit of each to make sure that I'm covered no matter what happens. And we can see that this is a real possibility on how they can convince the world into staying with the central banking system. So all I'm going to say is be very careful out there, because central bankers, they're not honest. They're only in it for themselves. They don't care if you lose all your wealth, because their job is to take your wealth. Their job is to steal your property, your assets. It's to steal and rob countries of their assets and to put everyone into debt to enslave them. This is their manifesto. This is what they do. So we can see that this is a possibility in what is happening today. And I'm saying be very careful in what you're doing. Now, again, we see that the entire system is breaking down. And they know that the dollar is going to eventually go away. They know that it cannot continue on. They can't sustain it. There's just too much debt. The petrodollar system is losing its grip in the Middle East, and everything is falling apart rapidly. And there are people that say, the SDR will be on the high level, cryptocurrency will be on the lower level, where people will use this to trade, and we could see how this could be a real possibility. So I still say purchase gold and silver to protect your wealth. That is a really great way to protect against inflation, to protect against transitions. And I also say, yes, be in the crypto market. Make sure you have, a little bit in that market, just in case this is the direction we go in. And again, they'll make it very easy for you to take your Bitcoin or your Litecoin or whatever and trade it in for the Fed coin. But again, the people at some point need to stand up and say, we don't want the Fed coin. But what they'll do is they just won't put it out there. They're going to try to pass laws. Just like when the Fed came into existence, they had to pass a law to make sure that everyone used the Federal Reserve note. They're going to have to do the same thing once again. So again, the economy is still coming down. The system is about to transition. You need to be ready and prepared for what is coming, and make sure that you understand what is happening out there right now. Listen, everyone, thanks a lot for listening. Be well, be safe, and especially be prepared. Thanks a lot.